Biggie building, you know he's on top. Million subs, he never gonna flop. Out of Chicago, where the streets don't sleep. Betting on games, making cash real deep. Crystal ball for sports, he knows the lines. He's a sports aficionado, the money he finds. From football to basketball, he's always on point. Predicting winners never disappoints. He's got that hustle, that Chicago vibe. Making moves on the streets, cash on the side. With E, you know it's always a bet. He's the king of the game, never forget.
Hello and welcome to the Etoft21sports show for July 9th. How is everyone doing? My name is Eric. I am the man behind Etoft21sports. Absolutely loaded episode for you today as we are starting our NFL divisional previews. And who better to come on the show than the number one Saints fan, then my boy Chase, aka the Wolf of Oakland. Really looking forward to talking a little NFC with him. Also, if you're not using Parlay Play, go check out Parlay Play. They are the sponsor of the show. Download the Parlay Play app. Use promo code NFL Betting Blitz for a nice little deposit match. Now, before we get into Chase, come on, I would like to talk about the fantasy football spotlight. For those new to watching, every single year when we do these, I talk about a player you should target in your fantasy football leagues. And today I have a player I absolutely love, and we're going to talk about Alvin Kamara. Fantasy football ADP of 76 and his RB 17 per Fantasy Pros. The New Orleans Saints made one of the best hires in the offseason, hiring Rick Dennison as their special assistant. But let's be honest, he's going to be their offensive line coach. The zone blocking scheme that Dennison runs is elite. Let's look at the last 5 lead backs in the Dennison system. They finished RB 16. Cook missed 2 games, still finished RB 16. RB2, RB6, RB33. This is when he was the offensive coordinator for the New York Jets, and Isaiah Crowell was leading the NFL in rushing before he got hurt, and RB7. That's an average of RB13. We take the Crowell season out of it, that's RB6. The average rushing total of the lead back in the Dennison system is 1,078 yards. The only years that the lead back did not go over 1,000 yards was because of injuries. Look, I know Kamara's 29 and currently holding out, but the point of this segment is to show players that are getting overlooked, and that is what Kamara is right now. He had the 3rd most fantasy points per game last season for RBs and is getting a scheme upgrade, an offensive line upgrade. That is why Alvin Kamara is in the fantasy football spotlight and why we are going to be targeting this year in our fantasy football drafts. So if you don't have Kamara, circle, you can get him in RB6. And I'm telling you guys, he's going to be a league winner. Now, let's welcome the guest of the show, my boy, Chase, aka the Wolf of Oakland, the host of the notorious OTP podcast, co-host of the Gymnasium. You will see him and I tomorrow night live on the college football tailgate previewing the Conference USA. And Chase and I are live every Saturday at Brunch Time Betting. Chase, how you doing today, my man?
Doing good. I'm glad that you've headed down to the Southland to my conference or my division of choice, and ready to talk about my Saints.
So let's talk about New Orleans once. I'll tell you what, man. I love that city, dude. I freaking love that city. Now, to live there, I don't know. But for like a 3-day run, you know what? That's I love that place, dude. I absolutely love that place. When was the last time you were in Nolo, my friend?
Oh, the last time I was there was for my dad's 70th birthday. He wanted to go down, and it was like around Christmas too. It was a lot of fun. My favorite thing about New Orleans is it's kind of like Vegas. Like you can have whatever Vegas trip you want to, Like, but with New Orleans, like it's the same thing. You can have whatever New Orleans trip you want to. It can be just all music, it can be all party, it can be whatever you want.
Oh my God, dude. I remember being a little loose and being on, there's this bar on, oh my God, I'm spacing. What's the big street? I'm spacing on it, of course.
On Bourbon?
On Bourbon Street. And they were playing some 90s rap music. Of course, me being me, I get up on the stage, I start rapping a little bit, you know. It was a good time, but we're not here to talk about those. We're here to talk about some NFL. Whew, I can't believe it is that time. We already got some questions coming in. NAA86. Can the Panthers get out of the NFC South cellar and drop the Bucks to last in the division? What do you think?
I feel like he might be a fan, and what I'm about to say might hurt his feelings a little bit because I really don't see it. I do think that they got Bryce a lot of help in terms of like the offensive line and everything, but I'm just not sure they got the firepower to really get it done.
I'm not a fan of this Bucks team. I think the Panthers are interesting, and there's one little move they can make. If they make this move, I am going to be invested in them. RG chimes in. Are we buying the hype around the Atlanta Falcons?
I am. I mean, I think they're gonna. I'm buying the hype on two teams in this division, and the Falcons are definitely one of them. I think that the Falcons ought to be pretty good with their quarterback upgrade now that they've got that solved.
Can Cousins make a run with the Atlanta team now since your boy Arthur is gone? Yes, I thought Arthur Smith was going to be a good coach. My bad, guys. My bad. I thought he was going to be a good coach. That team underperformed. He's gone. The Raheem Morris is the new head coach. Smith is up in Pittsburgh. What do you think? Do you think they can make a run? Do you think they can win a playoff game or two?
I think they can go as far as Kirk Cousins can take them, and I still have to get proof from Kirk Cousins that he can win the big game, that he can win the real big game, like the playoff game when the pressure is on, or the primetime game when the pressure is on. I need him to kind of stick that in my face before I actually believe it.
Any good futures? I'll tell you what, C-Spear 22. We will get to that in a little bit. We got some juicy futures coming on. Does Bryce Young make strides this year?
I mean, he's got to, like, where else does he go? Like it's either he makes strides or he's on the bench, right?
Which I'll get to a little bit. I think that could be a possibility. Who do you hate more, Bryce or Tua? I'll be honest, I hate Tua more. Sorry, Jim. How about you? Do you have any?
I have no animosity. If I had to choose, I would say Bryce because Tua's left-handed like me.
I didn't know you were left. I didn't know you were a silky smooth southpaw.
Yeah, man, silky smooth. I
didn't know you're a silky smooth southpaw. If I had to make a pick, it'd be the Bucks at plus 290. Thoughts? I'm a little down on the Bucks, and when we get into these previews in a little bit, you'll hear why. What are your thoughts on the Bucks?
They didn't really do anything in the offseason that excited me, really. So I think that I'm kind of projecting the Bucks to be in the bottom half of the division this year. But then again, I'm also picking a team that I think, with the Saints, that people are maybe a little bit down on to be in the top half of the division. So if I'm wrong there, then I could see them up towards the top, and anything can happen in the NFC South. It gets wild.
Let's make some money. Chase missed you on Saturday. Yeah, let's make some money. Did you play the Belmont Pick 6 over the weekend? That I don't know. I don't know. I can tell you I played the Belmont Pick 6 mandatory payout. I was out in the first leg. That was me. That was me. Let's jump right into it. We are here to talk. We're gonna go with how the teams finished. All these odds I have are via DraftKings. I just went to DraftKings to write them down. we could have some better odds that we mentioned when we're talking about these are bets and everything. The first team we're going to talk about is the Carolina Panthers. Panthers 250 to 1 to win it all, 120 to 1 to win the NFC, 11 to 1 to win the NFC South. To make the playoffs, yes, plus 550, no, minus 900. Over under is 5.5. Just tell us what your thoughts are on the Panthers, any futures, kind of where your head is.
So I think they did the right thing, which it seems like in the free agency that they really kind of focused on the offensive line and brought in some veterans who can actually protect Bryce Young, because I think we don't really know what Bryce Young is yet because he spent so much time on the ground last season. They did get him a little bit of help at the skill positions through the draft and also through free agency. I mean, they pick up Deontay Johnson, but I don't ever really think of Deontay Johnson as like a burner or somebody who's going to take the top off the defense. He seems like I think I just associate him with the Ben Roethlisberger 1-yard passes of the last few years of Ben Roethlisberger's career. I think having Xavier Legette from South Carolina will help, but I don't think that they really got him as much firepower as he needed. I'm cold on the Panthers. I mean, they're starting off a new coach again. They're trying to put a new offensive line together, and then they don't have wide receivers who are really going to blow anybody's skirt up. So I'm kind of bullish on the under here, under 5.5 at minus 105.
Okay. All right. For me, I look at it, it's really hard to get behind this team with an owner like David Tepper. I don't know if you remember before the draft, there was a sign in Charlotte, and the sign was just kind of fun. It says, hey, let the GM pick the team. He stopped his car, went into the goddamn restaurant, and started talking trash to the general manager. It's like, dude, just let it go, man. Who cares? We've seen this guy get in fights. He didn't want CJ Stroud because he put ketchup on his steak. Like, what is this thing? It's like, step back, let the coach and the GM do their thing. Speaking of the coach, they got Dave Canellis, and let's face it, he's been great. He got a lot out of Geno Smith. He got a lot out of Baker Mayfield. Is he going to be able to do that with Bryce Young? Because I always say that in my eyes, and I want to hear your opinion on this, if the quarterback doesn't make a jump from year 1 to year 2, it's just not going to happen.
I'm with you. There are very, very few examples of quarterbacks who have just kind of put it together 3 or 4 years, after they've had the chance to start in their first year. There are very few that have put it together that late. I agree completely.
Last year, they were 2-6 in 1-score games. And my bold thing is this: if Andy Dalton was the starter last year, they would have been in a position to win the South. Mm-hmm. One of the things that stood out to me, as you mentioned, the offensive line, second in sacks allowed, first in adjusted sack rate. They adjusted that, as you mentioned, in the free agent market, adding Hunt and Lewis, really going to help the interior of the offensive line. You mentioned the weapons that they did add. They also drafted Jonathan Brooks, the rookie running back. That's going to add to Hubbard, Thielen, and Mingo. So the pressure is going to be on Young right now to make the first step. And let's face it, this is the first time this kid has dealt with adversity in his NFL, even collegiate, even NFL, like football career. We don't know what's going to happen right now with him facing adversity. Some people thrive in it. Some people quiver up. We don't know what's going to happen with Bryce Young. And the thing to remember is this coaching staff isn't tied to him. When we look at how their schedule is, if they struggle, they could be quick to pull the trigger and go to Andy Dalton. We need to remember that. And I think that would be the point if we were going to get into Panthers futures, to kind of look to get into them if they make that. Defensively, this is the thing that stood out, okay? 4th, okay, in fewest yards, 3rd fewest passing yards against, allow the 23rd, okay, most rushing yards. So that's a pretty good defense.
Pretty salty defense.
They gave up the fourth most points. So that means a lot of short field. You know what I mean? Yeah. Is it mind-boggling?
Right.
It's pretty mind-boggling when you say it out loud. Solid defense, but they got rid of Brown and Houston up front. I really don't know why you would do something like that with how good your defense was. Per the Pythagorean win total, this team should improve a lot. Second most improved team via that. 10th easiest schedule, +3 rest advantage. I mentioned it. They could be 0-6 going into this game at Washington when we look at their schedule. And if that's the case and they pull the trigger, I am going to look to get some futures on them. Inflated number to make the playoffs, inflated over-under, something like that. I think the ceiling for this team, though, is 7-10. I think the absolute ceiling is 7-10. They can't go over that. Some situational spots. Week 4, Ravens have the Bengals on deck. Could be a little sleepy spot for the Ravens. Sure. Week 8, we got to look to fade them. Everyone's down at Denver, but Denver's going into this game on 10 days rest, which is huge in the NFL. Week 12, Chiefs are coming off a game against the Bills with the Raiders on deck. Week 14, Cowboys are coming off a Monday night football game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So neither one of us are really high in the Panthers. I think the time we need to look to get invested on them, though, is if they move on from Bryce Young and put in Andy Dalton.
Yeah. I could see it. I think the offense changes quite a bit. I think it's a lot easier to block for someone who doesn't hold the ball quite as long as the red rifle. You know, the Bryce Young does having the red rifle get rid of it a little bit quicker might behoove them.
Now let's shift our attention over. Oh, here we go. What if Young has success? I mean, do you see any world?
I won't say success, but I can see a world where he's better than last year. And do we call that success? That's a big kind of question mark to me.
I mean, I think if we just see improvement, I mean, at this point, let's face it, I think we just need to just kind of look for improvement. Yes, I do believe in Terrace Marshall. I think if Terrace Marshall had an opportunity, he would be a good wide receiver in this league. I am team Terrace Marshall to the fullest. Free Terrace Marshall. Next team, buzz team of the NFL, the Atlanta Falcons. 25-1 to win the Super Bowl, 12-1 to win the NFC, -115 to win the South. To make the playoffs, -190 yes, +150 no. Over under 9.5. Chase, talk to me about the Dirty Birds.
Well, I will say that I really like what they did this offseason with the quarterback position, obviously. Kirk Cousins is a big upgrade over everything that they were trying out between Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke and everything else. And also, I really like the pick of Michael Penix. I think that's a great succession plan to Kirk Cousins. And I think that, the head coaching hire is just as splashy as the quarterback moves. I think Raheem Morris is a heck of a coach. I think he's going to do a lot better his second go around as a head coach. I will say, they have the weapons. The one disappointing thing that they did personnel wise is I feel like they let who might be the most underrated weapon for the 2024 season with the new kick return rules, Cordell Patterson, that they let Cordell Patterson go. That I think that you could have kept him, hopefully, but they might have paid Kirk Cousins so much that it was impossible. I mean, do I think that they're good enough to go to the playoffs? Yes. I mean, do I think that they're good enough to win the division? Yes. I like other teams better because I'm a big dirty homer. But I think that this is a team that has skill. They've got London, they've got Robinson, they've got Pitts. I mean, running back, tight end, wide receiver. What else do you need at the skill positions? We might actually see some stars kind of emerge from those guys. So I'm a little bit. I think that their win total, all their other props aren't really great for making money. But I did find one that I kind of like because I think that their early schedule is tough, which is how many their wins in the first 5 games. And if they go 2-3, I can get +210 on that. And I kind of like it with some of what they have on their schedule.
All right, so I'm old. I got all these teams. Don't laugh in order in vanilla folders, dude, with their schedules. So you mentioned their first 5 games. Let me see if I can find where. All right. So the NFC South. But you mentioned their first 5. Let's kind of pull up this schedule. Week 1, they have the Steelers, and they go at Philadelphia. Then they have the Chiefs at home, New Orleans, and Tampa on a short week. You know, they could go 2-3 there. I could see that. I kind of like that bet. I like that bet. Because I kind of feel we don't know what's going to happen in that Pittsburgh game. That Pittsburgh game could be a little bit interesting. Falcons, obviously the buzz of the NFL right now. They got an all-pro quarterback, have the easiest schedule in the league. With that being said, they're in a win-now mode. Why are you drafting a quarterback that's going to be a backup? You have no pass rusher, have no second DB, need a secondary safety. You have your literal pick of every single defensive player in the draft when they're picking at number 9. Why? You know what I mean? If you're going to pick Penix, that's fine, but move back. Penix wasn't going to be drafted in the top 10. Move back.
No.
And Cousins was bitching. Cousins sent out a press release saying he was shocked and didn't know this was going to happen. That speaks volumes to what is going on. I mentioned their defense, my worry point. Who's their pass rusher? Grady Jarrett's great, but they literally have no pass rusher. They have no second DB, and who's going to be the safety next to Bates? Cousins, former Michigan State great, but no quarterback has come back their first season from a torn Achilles and done well. I mean, maybe he can break it. Also, how big of a step up is Raheem Morris from Arthur Smith? I mean, you could have had Bill Belichick. I would rather have Bill Belichick, one of the greatest coaches of all time, than Raheem Morris. I would rather have Bill Belichick than pretty much any coach in the NFL right now.
Right.
But I don't understand that. In terms of betting, I have 2 bets on them. My first bet, I found Bijan Robinson 21-1 to lead the league in rushing. This is my thought process. Falcons were 9th in rushing yards last season. They're getting everyone on their O-line back. Plus, no more Arthur Smith means what? No more shared backfield. Robinson averaged 4.6 yards per carry last season. Tyler Agier, 3.7. That's a whole yard better, man. Why the hell was this a split backfield? I think we're going to see Robinson have north of a 65% share. Also, Falcons are switching to a zone blocking scheme. In zone carries last season, Robinson an insane 5 yards a carry. Especially with Cousins coming back, I think we're going to see them lean on this running game a little bit more to start the season. In terms of their season, I mentioned it before, I think a lot of it depends on this Pittsburgh game. If they lose to Pittsburgh and then you have KC and Philly on deck, that's a tough little turn. You know what I mean? That we could kind of see the wheels fall off a little bit. I mentioned Robinson. He's my number 1 running back on the board, the Etoft21sports fantasy football guy. Pre-sale going on now, Chase, just letting you know. He's my number 1 running back on the board. Obviously, Drake London plays an X wide receiver. Cousins has a history of targeting the X wide receiver. Just look at Justin Jefferson's production at Minnesota, Pierre Garçon back in the day with the Washington Redskins. But his ADP is a little low. He's a stay away from me. Kyle Pitts, if he plays a tight end, I'm all in. The thing is this, when you look at Cousins, he doesn't really target the second wide receiver. He targets the X and the tight end. So if Pitts is lined up playing that tight end position, I will definitely look at him. Some situational spots. That week 3 game against the Chiefs is right after the Chiefs play the Bengals.
Right.
Week 9, sandwich spot between the 49ers and the Eagles for the Cowboys. Week 13, sandwich between the Ravens and the Chiefs for the Chargers. Week 14, they travel to Minnesota. Minnesota has a 26-day stretch when they're at home. That's pretty big. Sleep in your own bed and everything, not traveling, looking to fade them there. Week 17, sandwich between the Eagles and the Cowboys for the Commanders. trendy team that seems to have everyone on them. I found plus 250 for them not to make the playoffs. I don't think when I say they have no pass rusher, no second cornerback, no one next to Bates at the safety position, and there's never been a quarterback to come back that first season from a torn Achilles and perform well, and I'm getting north of 2-1 for them not to play the playoffs, I'll play the Falcons plus 250 not to make the playoffs. I mean, strictly a line play. You know what I mean? There shouldn't be a world where that is happening. And I love Bijan Robinson this year. I'm going to play him 21-1 to lead the league in rushing, which is absolutely insane. Now, this is the part of the show that's probably going to take 2 to 3 hours. We're to the New Orleans Saints. Saints are 80-1 to win it all, 40-1 to win the NFC, plus 340 to win the South, to make the playoffs, plus 170 to not make the playoffs, minus 210, over under 7.5. Talk to us about Nolo, excuse me.
I think that the moves that they made in free agency were and in the draft, they were exactly the moves that they made that they needed. They needed defense and they needed protection for Derek Carr or for David Carr. And I really like the Chase Young signing to give an aging Cam Jordan some help. Cam Jordan's production kind of slipped off. I mean, you're talking about a player who was, a player of the 2010s, of like an all-decade player, and he's just, he's still out there. He's still producing, but he's just not producing near as much. And I think Chase Young will really kind of inject some youth into that defensive line. And then I think the Kool-Aid McKinstry pick might be the best pick that they made with the new kickoff rules, because he'll be dangerous in the return game if they choose to have him return kicks. And I'm not sure why they wouldn't, just based off of what he could do at Alabama. And plus, he's going to be much needed help in the secondary. So I really like the value that they got in the second round with Kool-Aid McKinstry quite a bit. Plus, it's really fun cheering for people named Kool-Aid. And now that he's not at Alabama, I can do that.
I hate to interrupt you, but it's kind of funny. My dog's name is Kool-Aid. So
I know.
You said his name, he runs around the corner, then he runs back. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I really I found New Orleans to make the playoffs at plus 170. I like it. I think that, you mentioned the new zone blocking scheme that's going to really help players like Alvin Kamara. Hell, it will help the Mormon Missile too whenever he gets the ball out of the backfield. I think that you might see a better offense. I think they've got a whole bunch of weapons between Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara, everyone else that they've got on the roster. And then you're adding players that really can make a difference on defense between Chase Young and Kool-Aid. So I've got them to make the playoffs at plus 170. And then I found a cute little wins after 5 games. If I take them to get 3 games, be 3-2 through the first 5, I get it at plus 210. Now it's really tough, and this is very much a dirty homer pick when I look at the schedule. But I can see them winning 3 if I squint really, really hard.
All right, let's look at these first 5 games.
You're gonna tell me there's no chance. I can already tell you this right now.
Panthers, Cowboys, Eagles, Falcons, Chiefs. Doable. I mean, we need to remember with the Cowboys, they have a lot of questions on their defense. They don't have Quinn. Quinn is a phenomenal defensive coordinator. You're going to Mike Zimmer. That's definitely a downgrade in my eyes. So we don't. Yeah. Cowboys could be Cowboys, I'm a little worried with their defensive front. I could see them beating the Eagles. I could see them, that Falcons game is 50-50. And the Chiefs have some questions up front. I mean, if this zone blocking scheme is really that, which I think it will be, I could easily see them getting to that. They have a -8 rest advantage. They have the 5th easiest schedule. But I'm going to tell you why I really like this team. They drafted the tackle from Washington, who's going to start their left tackle. They signed Lemieux from the Giants. So the left side of their offensive line is intact. And they brought in Clint Kubiak to run the offense and Rick Dennison to run the offensive line. I'm sure everyone is like, Eric, who the living hell is Rick Dennison and why are you on this guy's jock? He is the best offensive line coach in the history of the NFL. He had Isaiah Caldwell, the rushing leader, before he went down. Are you ready for this? Ruben Droggins. I have no idea who the hell this guy is. He rushed for over 1,000 yards in a Rick Dennison offense. Just mind-blowing the production players have had in Dennison's offense. And zone blocking is able to band-aid a lot of players' issues because it's more you're not blocking an area, the line is moving together as one. And him and Kubiak are the main reason I absolutely like this team a lot. They added field stretchers. What is that going to do? That's going to open the middle for Chris Olave. The basketball analogy is this. If you have three-point shooters, it opens up the paint for the post guy. If you have two guys on the outside that can stretch the field, it's going to open up the middle for Chris Olave and my boy, Juwan Jennings. If you're not following Juwan and his wife on TikTok, absolutely hilarious. Also, the old offense, it was designed just for matchups. They would pick out the matchups and look to attack this one. This new one is designed to give Olave, Kamara, and the other playmakers that they have room and space. And when you have players like that and you get them in space, that is absolutely huge. Now, you mentioned Carr. Did you realize he was 8th in QBR rating last year? Did you realize?
I didn't. It was because it was so ugly early.
He was 25-8 TD to INT ratio.
I did not.
Do you realize if you just blindly put the numbers up, him and CJ Stroud basically have the same numbers? So I'm just saying he is lot better than people realize. Also, one of the key things to Kubiak is under the center, play action pass. So you take the snap from under center, play action pass. Chase, do you care to guess who is number 1 in the NFL in under center play action passes last year?
I'm going to guess it was David Carr.
It was Mr. Carr. You are correct. Defense, you mentioned Jordan. The thing is if you have one guy that's able to get to the quarterback that forces the offensive line to shift 2 over, it's going to open up the other guy. So I think the Chase Young signing is them coming over, hoping Chase Young can get some magic, and thus having Cam Jordan in one-on-one situations. I think that is the logic. That's what they need. If this team can generate pressure, this defense is going to be a lot better than people realize. Dennis Allen is elite at scheming. Their back four, as you mentioned, could arguably be one of the better ones in the league if they decide to keep Lattimore, which I think they're going to do. Look, I like this team a lot. Allen is able to scheme. I have 2 bets on him. The first bet is I have Kamara to have over 650 yards rushing. Look, like I mentioned before when we talked fantasy football, I know he's a holdout. But when you look at the money he's going to miss if he doesn't get to camp, he's going to get to camp, okay? This holdout, he's got 2 more seasons left in his contract, but they can get out of the contract after this year. I think he's kind of looking for a little guarantee that won't happen. But he's not going to risk it. He wants to get paid, so if they're not going to give it to him, he's going to get there. He's going to get in because he wants to make money. And if he's sitting out the season, he's seen what happened with Bell when you don't play. So he's going to be there. In terms of the 650, look, running backs in Rick Dennison's system, 1,078 yards per year. Only 3 times they did not go over the 650.5 yard total. That was due to injury. The prop I really wanted to find, and I know he's never done it, Kamara over 1,000 yards. I mean, dude, that should be juice to hell. Throw a piece of pizza on that. Throw up like a small pizza on that. That's low risk, high reward, which could easily happen. The next prop, and this one's for you, buddy. I'm taking the Saints to win the South at plus 340. Offensive line, huge upgrade. When I put everything on paper, I feel this is the team with the less holes. And when I look at their defensive play caller and their offensive play caller, I like those two better than anyone else in the South. So I'm going to take the Saints plus 340 to win the South. You know, some situational spots. Week 11, Browns off a bye. Week 14, Giants off a bye. Week 16, Commanders off the bye. No, week 15, Commanders off the bye. Week 16, it's a little weird. Packers have this weird stretch where they're going from one side of the coast to the other side of the coast, back up to Green Bay. A lot of travel there. I think Packers are going to be a little tired, so I think that's a good time to fade the Packers. But I like the Saints too. I think they win the South, man.
Yeah, from your lips to God's ears, I hope they do.
Uncle Rico loves talking offensive line and Oklahoma State football. Jesus. You know what? I no comment. Next team, gonna go to Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They are plus 750. Plus 75. Plus 7,500 to win the Super Bowl. Plus 3,500 to win the NFC. Plus 300 to win the South. To make the playoffs, plus 145. To not make the playoffs, minus 185. Over under 7.5. What say you about the Bucs, my friend?
I don't know why I don't trust the Bucs this year, but for some reason I really don't trust the Bucs this year. I think a lot of this has to do with I could really see this being a Baker Mayfield down year. It seems like after he has up years and he really starts smelling himself and starts getting that, that swagger and starts doing more and more commercials that things kind of go downhill for him. And it doesn't really seem like they did much to the roster outside of re-signing Baker and re-signing Mike Evans. Outside of that, I can't point to anything that they brought in that says to me that they're going to be a better football team than last year. If anything, Mike Evans is a year older, and Baker Mayfield maybe has an inflated ego, and I can only see them maybe taking the step backwards. With the Falcons getting better at the quarterback position, getting a new head coach, with Rick Dennison stepping in to the offensive line at New Orleans, and the Kubiak, calling the plays, and all the weapons that New Orleans has, I can't see them topping them. The only team that I think that they end up on top of is honestly the Panthers. And I disliked the Bucs so much that I really didn't have any sort of action in this, but I do use them in another bet later.
So their offensive coordinator, Dave Cannell's got the head coaching job with the Carolina Panthers. That's pretty good for a guy that called the plays for a team that was 23rd in passing yards and dead last in rushing yards. How will their new OC Cohen fix that? That is the big question. Also, were they really that good last season? They were 4-7. Then they won 5 of their last 6 to make the playoffs, needed to win the last week of the season. No key additions on the offense. Basically the same crew as last year. Cohn, who was the OC with the Rams last year, but let's face it, that's basically McVay calling everything. He was with Kentucky before that. How is he going to fix all the issues that this offense has? Mike Evans, we were on his over last year. Easiest bet of the time. Mike Evans won me a couple fantasy football leagues. Is this the year his streak ends, though? He's getting up another year up there. His over-under last year in yards was 950.5. This year it's juiced up to over 1,000. I'm a little worried that this is when the streak's going to end because you mentioned Baker Mayfield. He has this thing where he has 2 bad years then 1 good year. And he just had his good year, so now we're in the mood for 2 bad years. Is that trend going to continue? Last season, their defense, 6th fewest rushing yards, 7th fewest points, but were 23rd in yards allowed and gave up the 4th most passing yards. White, their best linebacker, Davis, their best DB, are gone. I think this defense is going to take a step backwards, and the pressure's on Vita Vea to stay healthy. He's the reason they're so good against the run. If Double V goes out, this team's not going to be able to stop a nosebleed. And also they got McCullen. McCullen, per my rankings, is the worst cornerback in the NFL. And somebody I'm going to look to target in DFS when it starts. He can't cover anybody. So I think this defense is going to struggle. They made no offensive improvements. I have them going 5-12, man. I think they're really, really, really going to struggle. I did not bet their under, but if I had to make a bet, I would bet the Bucks under 7.5 wins, excuse me.
The way I opted to use them was in a bet that actually incorporates all 4 teams. It's the exact finish for the NFC South. And if it goes Saints, Falcons, Bucks, Panthers, I can get that at 11-1. Now, I'm not sure if you're going to say to me that's a good bet, or if you're going to say that way too much shit has to happen for that to cash and to only get 11-1, or I should be getting better on that. But for some reason I saw it and I was like, ooh, I want to play this one. This feels smart.
I like it. I like it a lot. I think there's some good value there. So let's just kind of review the bets we have. Chase, what were your future bets for the NFC South?
Sure. For the Panthers, I went under the 5.5 win total I got them at -105. For the Falcons, I took their wins in the first 5 games at +210. And for the Saints, I was on them to make the playoffs +170. For them to have 3 wins after 5 games at +210. And then the exact order of the finish in the NFC South: the Saints, the Falcons, the Bucks, the Panthers, +1100.
I like it. My bets were Bijan Robinson, 21-1 to lead the league in rushing. Falcons not to make the playoffs, +250. Kamara over 600. Kamara over 650.5 yards rushing. Saints to win the South, +340. Chase, I'd like to thank you for coming on and talking some NFC South. Why don't you tell everyone where your podcast comes out and what you have planned? Because Del Mar and Saratoga are opening up.
Yeah, we got Saratoga starting this week. So starting tomorrow, we'll have a podcast Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for covering all Saratoga this week, from opening day all the way through the big stakes races on Saturday. You can find that wherever you get your pods, be it Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. And you can follow the show at the Notorious_OTB. That's just at Notorious_OTB. And you can follow me. You can always find me being abrasive on Twitter at @OfOaklawn.
All right. Why the hell did you bet the A's today? So let me tell you why I bet the A's real quick. My number 1 fan, sports facts. There has been a trend this year that no team, after they win the 3rd game of the series against the Yanks, has won the game 1 of the next series. So as a fade scenario, Bello's been very bad first 5 of the last couple starts. That is why we bet them for tonight. Unfortunately, didn't hit. We are back at it. Hopefully the Giants get some run production going on. And tomorrow is our boy Feedy, National Feedy Day tomorrow. So we're going to be on the White Sox first 5. I'd like to thank everyone for watching. Make sure you give my boy Chase a follow at @OfOaklawn on X. And we'll be back next week previewing the AFC West with my boy Bryce from the I Need It Sports Pod. We'll see you guys next week.